a psychoanalyst, and for the past 25 years I've been treating people who come into my office because what they've been doing, their ability to consciously change their life isn't working. We have an unconscious, we have a whole hidden dimension of consciousness, and until we get to know it, we're limited. So after treating people for 25 years and winning awards writing clinical articles, I realized that the way that we do psychoanalysis is like an underground movement, it's like a secret. And that I had to get out and try to explain to people that the energies in our system shape themselves around ideas, and when you work with those energies, the ideas shift and change happens naturally.
Okay, so if you have a book called
Where's My Sanity?
Good, that's great.
Yeah, it's a good title.
And is it done?
Yes.
Okay, so what have you done so far to let people know that it's available?
I've blogged on elephantjournal.com. I've gotten a blog on Guy on TV. I have 5,000 connections on LinkedIn who are mostly practitioners who are very invested in somebody who's able to write stories and talk in a grounded way without any jargon about how the mind works and what we have to do differently.
So is one of your goals though to make it aware, make the mass of people, make everyone aware that it exists and that that's available?
As New Books in Psychoanalysis just said, poised to create a seismic shift in consciousness.
So is it for the profession, for the professional person and not the lay person?
It's for the lay person. It's a book of stories that helps you stop solving and start evolving.
Okay, so then you want to look
So
at...
that's a good phrase.
Thank you.
That's a good phrase.
Yeah.
And it helps you be where you are. That's the difference between solving and evolving.
So when you're insane and you're not living in that sane world yet because you're still living in insanity, how do you get to those people and who are they and what's that typical profile of probably the most obvious person? Is it the 45-year-old mom or the 40-year-old mom with the house and the husband and the kids and who's going crazy, or?
Yes, it's anybody whose common sense isn't working to help them get where they want to be for an unknown reason. You can't exercise, you can't change your habits, you can't, you're stuck in the same rut with your marriage, you're overwhelmed by your kids, and you have these ideas about your life that you're holding on to like a buoy at sea, but you don't feel like you're touching the bottom.
Right.
So your life is constantly suspended in that feeling of survival, trying to stay afloat. And when you find the ideas that you don't know about yourself, you hit the bottom, you can feel the ground under your... But the way to get to those ideas is very different from how we usually change.
So do you think that just through the book that they can do that, or are you doing any kind of live trainings or anything where you can actually have people have an experience? Because once you
Or is
know...
your goal just to get people to go find a psychoanalyst? What is the goal of the book?
I'd like to do some training for people who are working with patients to try to help them eventually, if I can get to the point where I see that my message is resonating with an audience I don't know yet. I think, but it's what helps you get to know yourself is an emotional experience, not from here, so I can't really train people, but I can teach them how the mind works and what you have to search for to open up.
Well, the real issue is, what's the purpose of your book? What is the outcome you want? Besides selling a lot of books,
To
what's
help
the
people
goal?
know that the limits of reason, there are other ways to
So that they'll then
enlightenment,
what?
other ways to change.
So that they'll then what?
Stop solving, stop pushing themselves, stop beating themselves up, and start searching for an experience that will help them get to know the hidden part of themselves.
On their own?
Well, they can search for experiences, but they have to find people like you, people like me, their spouse. They have to search for certain experiences. You can find them all different. I'm having that experience here.
No, I get that. I'm just saying that this is for all of you. What is the purpose of your book? What is the call to action? What do you want people to do? And so there's a little bit of confusion in the field with you, because what you said was, I want people to, and then you said, and I would do things for psychotherapists where I would help them, and now we're back to the psychotherapist rather than the lay public. So to really get clear about when you're on radio, when you're on TV, when you're writing an article, what is it you want people to do as a result of reading your book? I want people to start thinking differently, or I want them all to find a psychoanalyst, or I want them to start taking more workshops, or
Yeah,
you understand what I'm
they'll
saying?
do all of that. They'll talk differently to their children. They'll think differently about why their spouse is so difficult and unreasonable. They'll do all of that, and they'll come to me to understand this different way of thinking and find practitioners that I can help train in thinking emotionally rather than
So you
through
want them
common
to think
sense.
differently.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you're saying is you want them to let go of their old story and look at what's possible and what's new. Is that
Yes,
right?
I want them to look for an experience rather than a solution.
Right, well, until you have an experience, you can't really know what the solution is, so you need to somehow, I think, get people into having an experience. But you said something a minute ago, you said, I need to make sure it works, but have your clients been happy with you?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm writing the book. I know the method works, but I don't know if it works outside the treatment room.
Well, it does.
Well, it doesn't, that's what I don't know either. That's why I'm asking you, what's the outcome of the book? Can you, through the book, create an experience that they would get if they were in a treatment room? Or is it just enough to say, wow, I didn't know that existed, I need that, I'm gonna go find it?
I think it could be a little bit of both, because the book is stories.
Give us your best story. What's your best radio? If you're trying, I'm a radio guy, I'm interviewing you, you want people to buy your book. I'm gonna buy your book because I want to feel better and do better and have my life be more of what I want. But you said it's a book of stories. What's your best story?
I have so many stories, but for example, this quick story. A mother with a son who's melting down at every turn. His waffle isn't cut right, he has a tantrum. His school bag isn't put on his shoulder, a little strap is turned, he has a tantrum. And they're trying everything to get him to hold it together and say, if you can hold it together, we'll give you a reward. And they tried consequences, and they tried. And finally, she realized that his older brothers were very successful, and that the feeling he was having was that he was inadequate, everything was broken and wrong around him. And she said to him, you know, Mikey, I've had times in my life when things don't go right, when I feel like everything goes wrong. And then he looked at her and he said, really, Mom? And he put his head on her lap, and the tantrums disappeared. So what happened in that moment is that rather than trying to help him move to a different place, she figured out how to tolerate her own anxiety and her own upsetness with this ridiculous child and be able to get to what was happening underneath and address it emotionally.
Okay, so because she changed the way she was being.
She couldn't tolerate how ridiculous he was being, and when she could be helped to, and then delve a little deeper.
Okay, so here's the thing. When we were doing Chicken Soup, Jack was not sitting in an office with and having a practice and seeing one client at a time. He was on the road 24/7, and so was Mark doing talks, speaking. So how many of you are public speakers? Okay, how many of you do more than like 10 gigs a year? Okay, good. You should be doing 10 a month. Because the only way for you to get people to know what they don't know is to have them have an experience. So you can tell me something, but if I'm over here frustrated and not knowing what I know from being here for 25 years and understanding that there's a deeper sense of a methodology that you use, like how you be, the vibration, the law of attraction, all of those things, I can't put those pieces together. So if you can be out experiencing that, then when you're interacting, you're coming back and you're taking notes, like Jack would come back and say, wow, I know that story's a winner. Or that process really worked. If we were training trainers, we could use that process. Or I know that that's a group process I can use in my interactive workshops here. So if you have all these people here, you might have them turn to their partner and do an exercise together. But I think you need to get out of your office and stop overthinking and analyzing it because you're used to analyzing. Yeah. Stop it. And really, I mean, shut up and sit down. Shut up. Just get out of your office, you know. And like for me, with Chicken Soup, everywhere I went, I told people about it. I mean, if you were in my house or at a party or at the swap meet or the grocery store, I was telling you about Chicken Soup. I was giving you a story. I was talking about this vision. And I mean, to a point where people were kind of like, hey, had a friend of yours, could you maybe not invite her? You know, and then after a while, I was like, oh, invite your friend over, the famous one. So you kind of have to look at everything as an opportunity. There are no obstacles, and it might be that some of your clients, you can say, you know what, do you have a group of women you hang out with, or a group, or is there a lot of people experiencing this in your office? Can I come and speak to your company? So it's constantly going, where are you going next? Which is why your book is a great message, but what is your vision? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And then take that and make sure everything you do for that book and yourself and the world, that you build on that. That's just one thing. So you don't want to be in a tunnel vision. You really want to make that a message. And
Yeah, I get how you have to think.
yeah,
That's
really
helpful
do.
to everybody.
Yeah, I think too that just, you know, when you tell that story on radio or in person or whatever, then just take it to the next level so the listeners get engaged. This is now, and so the theme behind that story is that we have feelings that we don't want to feel. Our anxiety, whatever it was, you said she felt her anxiety and got comfortable with that, and she was able to just say, hey, I know what you're feeling. And then say, so what is it that you don't want to feel in life, that getting in the way? You know, in other words, take it back to the listener so they get that, oh, this applies to me. It's not just a meaningful story. Because anyone with a kid who's screaming, that's a useful story for, but it's a useful story for anybody who's avoiding feeling something they don't want to feel. And as you're saying, kind of the way out is through the feeling, not through trying to come up with an external mental solution to the problem. It's a good
But
message.
son didn't want to know how inadequate he felt.
How could he know? His mother didn't even know.
No, she was feeling
could
inadequate.
know,
She was feeling inadequate,
That's
so he was
it.
mirroring her energy.
Yeah.
So you're, then what Jack's saying is you're thinking back to how many of you out there are feeling this way, and as much as you can bring back your own story, how it happened for you, any way that you got to where you are, you're then showing them that you're human too, and you're not a doctor that's just got this advice, but now they're saying, oh my gosh, I want to go to this woman because she lived my life, I can relate to her. And so it makes it much more human.
And I think for you, any of the magazines like Cosmopolitan, Women's Day, any of those magazines that have to do where women are reading about kind of self-help issues, where you would give your general idea, a story to illustrate it, and then a question or two about how to apply it back to the reader, would be great fodder for those magazines. And then basically they put the picture of your book and say, for more information, you go to blah, blah, blah.com or whatever you look. But that's why I would really reach out to that market. You're very calm, you're very good, you're very believable, your story was well told. I think you're poised for success, but you got to do the work.
And have people give you feedback too about all the stories, which ones they related to most, which ones they didn't. So then you kind of know where you're seeing a lot of ahas versus a few. And then when you are on TV or you're on radio, you know which ones to use. Because Jack was on the road, so when people would say, oh, that book's never going to work, you guys are nuts, he'd say, I know it's going to work because if people are crying and they're laughing and they're cheering and they're coming up saying, where do I find it? Well, they're responding, it's feedback. So any blog that you do, it's instant feedback. Today, you guys have a lot more opportunity than we did. There was no internet. So it was all about being in front of people and seeing how they're reacting and then really noticing. And the biggest thing with authors, and this drives me insane, when someone says, I don't understand, or I don't get it, and you say, no but, and if you find yourself saying no but, stop it. And think about the fact that you're getting feedback and you're not listening. It's really important to see where they're really saying, I get it. You want those lights to go on as quickly as possible in the book, but also you really need to get out there and start asking everyone you know if you can come and speak to their group. So it's really ask, and if you don't feel comfortable doing it, have someone that works for you do it.
Where do you live?
In Boston.
Boston,
Yeah.
good. Churches, church groups, all kinds of groups that meet Wednesday nights and meet, parenting groups. I mean, just any group that gets together, women's groups of all kinds, the message is really valuable for those. And you may cut your teeth on groups that are 15 or 20 people, but once you get good at it, then you talk to 100, 300, it'll grow. And I see you sitting on the View talking to the people about this.
And I would really look at doing some interactive stuff, so you're not just speaking at people, but you're getting them into groups. So when you're talking with an audience and they're talking to each other, they will start to relate to each other, and it becomes humorous and interactive, and they're not overwhelmed with the information. But you're giving them a sense of relief and release also, which is really important. They all want that.
It's reassuring.
Just to give you an example, you tell that story, you say, how many of you in the audience, this is a real question, are parents? Okay, say, great. Now what I'd like you to do is get into groups of 3 people each, and I want you to talk about when was the last time you felt inadequate as a parent? So now you bring it right back to them.
Someone's laughing.
Exactly. And they each get, you have a stopwatch, your iPhone, whatever, you give each person 2 minutes, and you go, great. Now you can then go back and build on that, and now they're really, really engaged, because they're talking about their own experience.
And when they leave, they're talking about you. And the best marketing is viral marketing, and social media is amazing. But when you have a good project, and people say, oh, you have to go to this woman, or you have to see this, or you have to do that, it really has a huge impact. I mean, I worked with Sandra and Daniel Biskin, and everybody I know knows who they are, because I have a big mouth. When I find something I love, I tell the whole world. I can't stop. Because it's interesting. And so that's...
Claudia Luiz, where's my sign?
We actually did we did a parenting course based on the success principles and a chicken soup book called 6 Weeks to Sanity. So, but parents, it's hard because they don't usually want to buy a book to be a better parent. They just want to be sane. And so if you're trying to get them to be a better parent, you have to wait until their kid's an axe murderer, or they're only 2 and they still have illusions of grandeur. So anything in between, you want to make sure it's all about them. And then it will be all about their kids too. Is that helpful?
Incredible.
Good.
Thank you. All right.